Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the movie Alita Battle Angel. And this was okay. It wasn't the worst movie I've seen so far, but as I'm finding a lot lately with various forms of entertainment, this has more potential than was delivered in execution. And it comes down to a lot of things. Now, granted, the CGI is very well done, but I think it was so expensive to do it that they had to limit the amount of action that they had in the action scenes. And this, I, when you go through it, you don't know what it's supposed to be. Because there's multiple different things going on. There's the main character, Alita, trying to figure out who she is, where she belongs, and all that. But then there's like the action movie motifs that are going through, and it's all kind of almost fighting each other because you need this certain amount of CGI to make Alita and all the rest of the cyborgs fully realized characters. So that kind of then limits you to how much that they can do with certain action scenes. Because while Alita does do some awesome kick-ass things throughout this movie, it's very limited. She doesn't ever go what I would term like full hammer, like Super Saiyan ass. Like, it's fucking time to like whoop ass. We go from her. It's really poor pacing wise. We get like exposition dump, her kind of doing stuff like a teenage or a kid, to eventually reaching her kind of final form and being so badass that she like kills a dude in a single move. And the thing is, the story builds up to the confrontation with this dude, so it's kind of anticlimactic. I understand you get to the effect of when two masters of a certain martial arts fight, it should not be this drawn out kind of fight, but depending upon what kind of movie you're trying to make, if you're trying to make an action movie, you kind of want to see both the antagonistic force and your protagonist force tested and using everything that they have either acquired or learned throughout the movie in this culminative fight that would pit their skills and their ideologies against each other. We don't really get that. But that kind of gets into the factor of the antagonistic force in this movie is so far removed that we never really get that much of a resolution because we're just cliffhanger sequel teased at the end. Badly, I might add. Granted, there was resolution up into the point of like, I would have almost rather it just stopped at a certain point without this tease. It's like, you would have had ample enough, like, tease to begin with, and then you just add that on. It's like, ah, shit. So, this movie starts off, and we see this dude, Christoph Waltz, as Dr. Ito, though we don't know his name yet, trolling through a junkyard. Well, actually, before that, we're like, okay, here's the year. This is 300 years after the fall. It's like, okay, cool. And we're going through, it's like, oh god, there's this, like, great, awesome city above and this shitty undercity below. And we see Dr. Ito like trolling through the trash, and he's trying to look for parts because he's a cybernetic surgeon, and he finds Alita and brings her back, sees that her brain, everything's functioning, so he gets her into a body, which we learned throughout the movie was meant for his daughter. And it's like, wow, it's like a work of art and everything. And she's like testing it out. She has to eat and everything's like, oh, okay, we're learning more about this world. That's kind of cool. And she tries to eat an orange at first, but has the peel on, and he's teaching her, no, it's better if you do it like this. The biggest issue is we get through all of this, but we don't exactly know how much time has passed. Because it's like, oh, okay, she's learning about food and all that, learning how to move and everything, and then it just keeps going and going. We don't know exactly how much time passes for everything. It could be a couple months, could just be a couple weeks. All right, whatever. But he's taking her around, showing her all this stuff, talking about the upper city Zalem and how nobody else really goes up there. And they're going around the city. She meets Hugo, and pretty much almost instantly develops feelings for him because the runtime, we've got like 2 hours and 2 minutes. Gotta do it. So it's like, okay, they at least actor and actress wise seem to have some kind of chemistry, but it's mainly the pacing of it's like, oh, okay, they gotta look like they're interested in each other. He teaches her about motorball. It's like, okay, why do we've essentially got Quidditch in here, but yet, what does it add? Now, granted, they do add a plot relevant point to it, but it's like, okay. So we see her doing all this stuff and playing with the kids and all that. Like, oh, okay. Ito tells her to be in by sundown because there's a dude out there killing young women and everything. Or, well, we don't know if it's a dude or not. Just somebody's out there killing people. It's like, okay. And we see him coming and going at night and getting injured and everything. And Alita decides to follow him. And at first, it's made to look like he's the one killing the people. But he's not. Because there's that person killing young women, and there's also other people out there stealing cybernetic parts from cyborgs, which is wrapped up with Hugo because it's his group doing it. But they're going through, and they find that this group of people is just like a group of cyborg people are killing people. You got this one dude who's like crazy as shit and has blade hands, and this one chick gets is a blade-handed person as well. And we get this one big beefy boy who's just like, he really doesn't have much character stuff. It's really weird. But he is evidently a hunter warrior, unlike a bounty hunter. Space cowboy. Okay. Yeah. Bounty hunter dude who's been going after, and he's got this cool weapon, but he doesn't really get much to do with it. I mean, he's trying to like fight these people, but it's Alita that takes out the two main people and whoops the ass of the other dude, making him lose an arm before he fucking goes into a hole in the ground because he evidently knows the tunnels like Mole Man. It's like, okay. But she had a flash of her memories. Now, granted, flashbacks can be a very effective tool. I don't mind them. The issue comes into effect in that I like the flashbacks more because she has a flashback of herself kicking and whooping ass on the moon. It's like, I want that. That's cool. That's the kind of story I want to see. And we find out like all this stuff. She's like, oh, I want to be this hunter warrior thing because if I put myself in life and death scenarios, that'll make my memories come back. And Ito doesn't explain how stupid that is. He just immediately goes into no territory. And she, of course, doesn't listen. And she's getting ready to pretty much do that herself. But she relays this information to her friend Hugo and the rest of the people. And they talk about how, like, 300 years before, there was a war between Earth and Erm, the United Republics of Mars. And I'm like, you tease this great, like, this other conflict that I would much rather have story-wise. It's like, okay. But Hugo then knows of someplace out past the city limits, so they go there and they find an Erm ship, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Because we see that Alita's got really advanced technology. She got, like, an antimatter-powered heart. That's big. And if those kind of weapons were employed, it's like, motherfucker. Yeah. Because Zalem is the last city. There were many other cities before the fall, but everything else got shuttered down. Like, wow, that must have been big weapons to do that. But she gets into the ship. She's able to be under there a long time without breathing. Not too big of an issue if it was more brought up of how cyborgs work with breathing and all that. But she gets into the ship, she's able to remember certain things and gets one of the bodies of, like, the elite techno cyborgs. She takes it to Ito. He says he's not going to put her in there because that just, like, makes her out to be just a weapon completely. I'm like, okay, you could have delved a little bit more into this stuff. I'm getting a lot of kind of vibes of Ghost in the Shell while you're trying to pack a lot of different things into 2 hours and 2 minutes. But of course she gets pissed off, she goes, she gets the hunter warrior designation, goes to a bar and pretty much gets into a whole giant bar fight. Now, granted, she does some pretty cool moves here. And we get a lot of different kind of coolly themed hunter warriors. Hell, we get one dude who's got a Damascus sword that was evidently an arm weapon, which is like one of the sharpest blades ever, and she just starts like beating the shit out of people. She knows this like special martial arts that only the Erm knew, and nobody else has like been able to figure it out since. But of course, she like whoops all kinds of ass, and then we get the big beefy boy who had like went to the sewers. His boss Vector, who no, that's not technically his boss. Vector is the puppet dude. He got Hugo and his boys to go to one of these motorball players because he's got this like cool ass arm. They fucking jacked his arm and put it on Big Beefy Boy to replace his arm, and they're under the orders of Nova, who is on Zom, and he was evidently around during 300 years previously. It's like, okay, cool. Like Vector, he really isn't that much of a character. He is more of a puppet and a plot obstacle more than anything. Just to be like, okay, this is the underboss. Funnily enough, better named because he is the boss of the underworld. He brings up a line of like rather ruling in hell than serving in heaven, and I'm like, bitch, please, you get taken over and Nova talks through you. You are technically still serving. You ain't the king of nothing. I'm like, okay. And he is talking with Shireen, the ex-wife of Ito, because they had lost their daughter because this junkie dude was like, fucking give me drugs, and bowled past her and killed her. And she's trying to get this back up to Zom because they had previously they were up there, but because of the daughter's condition of being in a wheelchair, they decided, fuck you guys. Tossed them out. And, of course, Shireen's going through all this kind of stuff, trying to get up there any way she can. But Nova has tasked them with taking out Alita, and, of course, we see Beefy Boy try and do it, and they got some cool fight scenes, but her body gets pretty much destroyed to shit. But he's driven off, and Ito puts her in her new body, and it's pretty kick-ass and everything. It's the perfect thing for her. She's even got better touch and feeling receptors now as well. It's like, oh, okay, cool. And she wants to do the motorball because, of course, if you're a champion up there, you can get up to Zone. But she just, at this point, wants to just try it out. Of course, this starts leading to a convergence of events. The people that she's up against in her training exercise for motorball to get into qualifiers are just hunter killers there to pretty much kill her, while one of the other hunter warriors, Zapan, the sword guy, is going after Hugo, and they pretty much framed him of killing this one dude that they were jacking parts from. And he's running around. We get this big chase scene that really should have been cut down in Motorball. It just drew on a little bit too long because Alita's like going through. I mean, she kicks some ass and then is able to get out of the stadium, but then it's like, okay, keep going on. Of course, Hugo gets mortally wounded, and he's got, of course, a contract on his head, and she takes him into this church, and she's either got to kill him or whatnot. Otherwise, she's an accomplice. But of course, Shireen has come in and decided to help her out, and they save Hugo by chopping his head off and plugging it into Alita's heart. Yeah, of course, she had showed the head and it's not really doing shit. And they're like, yep, bounty's done. And it's like, what the fuck you doing? And then she like takes his sword and fucking chops his face because he was like going after her. And it's like, hey, you can't do that because that's her bounty. He's like, okay, whatever. And she gets Hugo back. He's pretty much put into a body. She tries to go and figure out what's going on with Vector and everything. And she whoops some like robot tanks' asses. But she gets up. Vector is afraid, but then she starts talking with Nova. And, of course, Big Beefy Boy comes back up, and she pretty much just slices him down the middle. And she learns that Hugo has left. and is trying to get up to Zalem, running up one of the tubes that she, of course, was trying to run up with her people when they had gotten destroyed during, well, presumably during the fall. And she's like, there's like a defense mechanism thing, but she's able to kind of like talk him down, and he's about to come with her, but then, of course, Nova initiates the defense mechanism, and it comes down, and it rips Hugo to shreds. Alita tries to save him, but he's like, you already saved me and everything, thank you, and he like falls apart and falls to his death. Okay. I would have been alright if it ended there, but it doesn't. It then goes up further as she has pretty much gotten herself up to getting ready to be the champion to get to Zalem, and everybody's cheering and all that. She's got 99 because that was her designation, and Nova's looking on. It was just too much of a tease, in my opinion. I'm like, I don't mind certain cliffhangers, but it was just like an awkward place to end it. It was like in the middle of the action, in the middle of an important event. And I'm like, okay, if you'd just been alluding to an event or whatnot, or you got us through to the end of that, like if she had finished it and was like, get ready to go to Zalem or whatnot, and then it had been ended like that, that would have been a little bit different. But it was like right in the middle of all this stuff that could have been interesting, seeing her like get her way. That could have been a movie of itself, but of course they couldn't do that in flashbacks or whatnot. But overall, I thought this could have been better done in that certain things seem to drag, especially the beginning portion. Now, granted, I understand trying to acclimate her and us to the world, but its pacing was poor, and once you got into the action bits, it got a little bit better, but it was more kind of like sputtered and starts. And there was just so many other things that I thought should have been the focus that could have been better done and more engaging and just better for the movie. Then I'm like, so it's not the worst one that I've seen. I didn't get bored or sleepy throughout it. It wasn't like horrible to watch. Like, I can't watch this to walk out of a movie. I've only ever done that once to a movie. Because that, ooh. So it wasn't that bad, but it gets more to the frustrating bit of there's potential here and there's a lot of cool stuff, and I would almost rather have the prequel of the war and the fall more than what's going on now. But hey, we'll have to see if this makes enough to do a sequel and make a viable franchise, and I hope if they do that they make a better movie. Because this isn't horrible, this is a good kind of base, but we'll have to see how it goes from here. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.